you?
I'm doing well. Good to see you, Trae.
Yeah, great to have you here again. I mean, we have been very specific about getting information out, and y'all have been like, look, Converge is a vehicle to do that. Tell us a bit about how it's been going for you since you started coming here and really bringing information about your programs through this particular medium.
Sure. Well, as you know, as we've talked about, the Office of Economic Development is really focused on wealth creation by breaking down barriers and opening up access, particularly for folks who have been historically locked out of wealth creating opportunities. But we can build all the snazzy programs we want, but if we're not communicating with folks and letting them know how to apply, what sort of help or assistance we have for helping them apply, then no one really benefits. So it's really important that we're out here telling people about the programs and then getting their feedback and understanding what they need so that when we're developing new programs, we're really meeting the needs as they appear.
You know, well, our job here is just to make sure that people are aware and informed. I mean, particularly for me, I'm really concerned with engagement, right? And how can I help to spark a greater sense of engagement? Are you guys feeling that over there at Office of Economic Development, OED, where it's like, okay, man, we're getting the word out in a massive way. We're feeling that level of engagement from folks that are applying or asking questions or connecting. Are you feeling that?
We are. You know, sometimes it's tough at the city or any government agency. Folks sometimes struggle to find you, to figure out how to interact. And so it's really on us to figure out new ways to engage and meet people where they are, which again is why we're excited to be on your show and making sure that we're spreading the word in different ways and reaching different communities that might not necessarily be familiar with working with the city or understanding what it is we have to offer.
Yeah, well, one of the things that I really appreciate about having you come on is I'm learning so much about these innovative ways that you guys are creating programs and funding programs in particular to really impact small businesses. You guys have been doing a lot of work. Just give us kind of an overall view, because you guys have been doing a lot of different things and we've been hearing about one program after another. But I know for you as a director, all of these programs have their kind of North Star, right? There's something that's really guiding you when you're talking about opening up opportunities and resources for those who historically haven't had them. How are all of these kind of new age programs that y'all are doing, how are they making that impact, you feel, in community?
Well, it's been interesting. We've had some new resources that we've been working with some of the federal recovery dollars. And then just in this last city budget cycle, we've been programming some new resources from the Jumpstart tax revenue. So it's been an exciting time for economic development where we've been able to push a little further, try some new things, be a little more experimental, and really make sure that we're listening to small businesses, understanding what they need, whether it's access to capital or help finding retail space, or help, as we're going to talk about later, with damage to their storefronts. We just want to make sure that we're offering a menu of options for folks so that it's not just one thing, but we're trying to provide things to get them on their feet, get them being successful, and then hopefully building wealth over generations.
Yeah, this is important. I think one of the greatest ways you can do that is kind of what you're talking about here, not just spreading the word, but having a real lens of how to be relational in community. And I think that's one of the toughest things in terms of state or any kind of government jobs or government departments. Like, it's about relationability, I'll say. Like, how relational can you be, and how can people feel like, you know what, I go there and I was connected to, I was cared for, yes, in a sense. Tell us a bit about how you guys kind of utilize that as an approach to really making sure that people feel welcome to approach you all.
Well, it's something that we got to work on. So we're a very external facing department. And so we talk about wanting to be the best networked department in the city, which means that we've got connections throughout the city geography. So from south to north, east to west. And then we've got connections in a variety of different communities that may speak different languages or have different cultural competencies. But we want to make sure that we've got some sort of communication or relationship, as you mentioned, with folks, so that it's not just a transactional thing. It's more, we're kind of understanding them and working with them on their journey as, again, they try to grow and thrive as a business.
Well, you mentioned something that I was going to get to with you, and because I think it's really important when we talk about the demographics of Seattle, they span the spectrum.
Yes.
You know, right? I mean, like, there's no one, monetary, economic piece that you can cling to say, okay, let's work with these folks this way. You guys got to have a diversified approach in order to do exactly what you're talking about, to meet people where they are. So that really is on you, director, too, to make sure you have a diversified staff. Tell us a bit about how you're taking that in internally to ensure that your staff is prepared to meet people where they are in all of these range of demographics that you're experiencing throughout the city.
Yeah, I mean, you're so right on, because diversity is our strength here in the city. Whether it's geographic diversity, racial or ethnic diversity, or industry diversity, like all those things make us have a more resilient and successful economy overall. But on a staff level, we've really got to work at it, right? Again, it's about building relationships throughout the year, not just kind of when we need them. And then I'm excited about some things that we're doing to help our programming be more successful. So for instance, for this last budget cycle, we got a pot of money to help us with language access. Previously, we've kind of pulled that ad hoc from a bunch of different programs, but now we're actually going to have a central budget to work with so that we can try new things, build relationships, and make sure that we're reaching people in different languages so that they feel like they're part of the city and that we want them and we're welcoming them into the programs that we have to offer.
Yeah, I think accessibility is key when we talk
huge.
about diversity.
It's the game. I mean, again, we can build all the programs we want, but if they're not accessible and they're not reaching the people that are really going to benefit the most from them, then we've failed. So it's incumbent upon us to figure out how to create those points of access and then constantly refine it, because it's constantly changing.
Yeah, that's another thing too. I think for any state agency or city agency, how are you also being responsive to the changes? I mean, we have always talked about it here on my show, but also on Converge, is that, for many of us from the Central District, there's so much change with gentrification that we're finding when we're talking about, okay, we want to really, make sure Black communities are aware of certain things. We're having to really span the spectrum now, because there's not like a central location of where a lot of Black families are concentrated. And so when we think about the ways that we even have to disseminate our materials and our content, it has to be wide ranging. And I'm sure that's the same for you all. When you think about your role and some of the ways that you guys have been able to utilize, federal funding and ARPA funding, some of this is one-time funding, as we know, but tell us a bit about some of those highlights, some of the things that you're really excited you guys have been able to do as a part of city government.
I'm really excited about the commercial affordability programs that we have to offer, because, we talk a lot about in the city about the housing affordability crisis. There's also just a huge challenge with commercial affordability. And so we're really excited that we've got programs that help businesses get in the door, like with Seattle Restored, that gets folks into vacant storefronts. And then we've got our tenant improvement fund, which I know we came and talked to you about, which is helping people improve and expand their space. And then finally, we're going to be launching in the next year, which hopefully we'll come talk to you about, is our community business ownership fund, which is getting people to actually own their space. So having that kind of continuum of resources around commercial affordability, I think is really special. It's new stuff for the city. We're definitely pushing kind of what the city's done before and their tolerance around risk in that arena. But I think that's part of our role, is to, again, understand what businesses need and then try to push the city to make sure that we're helping meet them.
Well, when you talk about some of these things in terms of like the suite of programs you guys offer for funding, you guys really are setting a tone. I think that there's a lot of other cities that are kind of looking at Seattle to see how you guys manifest some of these ARPA funds and federal dollars that are coming in. Really, it's about like, oh man, COVID hit businesses and hit communities really hard. How are we, making sure that we're, putting resources where they need to be to make a real bounce back? But I also think too that, and I've said it before, I'll say it again, Seattle is one of those cities where it's like Seattle's the only named city Seattle in the country. So there's something really specific about what Seattle does that's not just being looked at throughout the state, but also throughout the country. And so setting some of these precedents is also major. But I think about the fact that we're talking about COVID bringing out these opportunities, yet we know these opportunities exist anyway. How are you guys really hoping to expand on what you guys have learned through some of these resources that have come in and how you guys have been able to create these innovative programs?
Well, I always believe that Seattle always has the right ingredients to be a leader, right? We've got the resources, we've got the brain power, we have the values. If you mix those together in the right way and get organized, like there's nothing we really can't do here in Seattle. So I'm very bullish just on the concept of us being a national leader. As well, I think it's important, just as we're networked within the Seattle community, we also need to be networked with some of those other cities, because to your point, a lot of them are going through similar challenges. As much as we want to be a leader, it doesn't mean that we necessarily have to build everything from scratch. We can beg, borrow, steal ideas from those other cities and adapt them for our communities. And I think that's something that we really need to do a better job of. Plus, there's a good sense of kind of unity among different cities, whether you're advocating for certain federal dollars or other kind of resources, or just trying to put together programs. Going through it together can be a real benefit for the city of Seattle now and in the long term.
Yeah, well, I think you guys are doing a pretty good job. I mean, this is something where it's like, as long as these programs are really hitting the areas that need it, that's really the impact that you guys are looking to make. And like you said, you can have all the greatest programs in the world, but if people don't feel like they can engage with them, and then we're still having these growing disparities in terms of economic opportunities, particularly when it comes to small businesses, that's really key. So I'm excited after this break, I get to talk to Dominique a bit about the Storefront Repair Fund, right, for small businesses. Just give us a little bit of a general overview, and then I'll dive into the details with him.
Sure. Well, we heard strongly from small businesses and from a number of our neighborhood business districts, just the frustration they were having with storefronts and windows being broken. And if we're talking about trying to build wealth, it's really hard to build business wealth when your door's busted in or your window's broken out, especially because that costs money just to get back to normal. And so we heard a big kind of groundswell for the city to do something here. And so we put together the Storefront Repair Fund. We had learned a lot in our work with allocating federal dollars previously. So we're able to take a chunk of those and put it towards the Storefront Repair Fund. Dominique, who you're going to speak to in a moment, is our absolute expert. He ran our small business stabilization fund. And so he took a lot of the lessons learned there and applied it to this new program. And it's us as the city basically trying to bring businesses back to baseline. He'll give you the particulars, but so far we've seen an enormous cry for demand in the terms of the number of applications coming in. And we think it's just going to help businesses get back to baseline. Because one of the things we heard acutely beyond just the out-of-pocket cost to repair a window is if they make an insurance claim and then their insurance cost goes up, that's devastating in the long run. So it's really putting our small and Main Street businesses in a pickle right when they're trying to come out of the pandemic. And so we felt this was a great chance for us to kind of step in an immediate sense and try to provide some relief and show that the city cares about those Main Street businesses and the value that they have in our communities.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's always a pleasure to talk to you, Director. Thank you so much for being here and sharing some real insight on all the steps that Office of Economic Development, OED, is making over there. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Trae.
Absolutely. Well, you guys.